How do we understand women?
Women do not like making decisions. Understanding what the problem is actually 80% of the solution to solving it.
If you're a man listening to this right now, you've probably had the thought of, why are women so complicated? Well, today we speak to Sasha Fedorovsky, the woman helping men regain intimacy, love, and respect back into their relationships by helping them to simply understand women.
Society is creating a really confusing narrative. Men have actually been emotionally repressed. Pornography is manipulating men. It's stealing your power. No man feels like a king after he's just jerked off to the screen. Continuously talking about your feelings without an end goal, it's actually dropping your testosterone. In order for a woman to feel attraction, his testosterone levels have to be 10 times higher than hers. A woman is attracted to you when you're fully charged, when you're passionate, when you have a mission, when you're in your power and you're in your strength. The world is a man's world. But when they're able to open up their heart space or their right brain, they become very powerful.
How do we solve a lot of the issues in the bedroom?
Sex is the gateway for a man to start to open up his heart. Everything that you're doing outside of the bedroom is going to make things work in the bedroom. One of the simplest tools I give for men to save their relationship, to improve it, it's just a tool for life, and it's simply asking her.
Welcome back to 2024 of the Better Project podcast. 5 years. Who would have thought that 5 years ago I would be doing a podcast? Wow. I'm super excited. This isn't your standard mental health podcast. We have an epidemic in society right now. What we're doing is obviously not working. With the rise of mental illness, depression, anxiety, suicide, unfortunately, something needs to change. I don't have all the answers, but through sitting down and having the conversations that I do, I hope to find them. Through powerful, unfiltered conversations designed to challenge the way that we think, feel, and act, we aim to not only spread awareness, but to build mental fitness and resilience by providing the tools, tips, and strategies that you can implement into your daily life to improve your mental state and create the life that you truly desire. There's going to be controversial topics. You may agree, you may disagree. But all I ask is that you come in with an open mind and try to understand both sides of the story. Join me on this exciting journey. I hope you get as much value out of these discussions as I do. Stay tuned by pressing that subscribe button. Let's get back to the episode. Enjoy. Sasha, how do we understand women?
How? Well, it depends. You're asking from your perspective or because a lot of women don't understand themselves.
Yeah, because for me, I feel like I've always had to be a mind reader when it comes to women. They say, for example, you're ordering dinner. They go, oh no, I don't want anything. Then you order the food and then they go, why didn't you think of me? Why didn't you order something? And I'm like, what is going on right now? And that's a simple example, but there's so many more examples out there. And so many men.
That is a good example. Let me interrupt you before you go too far, because the best way I can answer that is just by dissecting that statement.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's so many little landmines as a man you can fall into there, which you know. So when you ask a woman, what do you want for dinner? The first, from your perspective, you might be being considerate, or you might just not be thinking. You just want to have dinner, right? So for a woman living in the masculine world, right, this world has been made for men by men. So especially if she's a working woman, or even if she isn't, she has decision-making overload, right? And women do not like making decisions. That's one of the first rules.
Why not?
Because it creates a strain and a responsibility, and they don't like to make decisions for men. Okay. This creates a strain on the nervous system to have that responsibility. And so they want to feel the safety from a man. So instead of asking, what do you want for dinner, which straight away she's sort of thinking, what does she want to eat? She doesn't want to seem greedy. She wants to consider you. So a woman is always considering everyone, okay? That's how women are biologically designed, and they're also conditioned in this way to sort of not be selfish or not seem sort of, like to take up too much space. So what you could do instead to reduce some of this drama is to provide her with two options. You can say, darling, would you like to have Italian or Chinese for dinner? I'll book it. Okay. So this is providing a woman with a structure. So this is what a woman really craves and needs from a man is structure. So then she can be creative and, have the freedom and I guess the safety to choose.
See, what's thrown me off is I get you,
Yeah.
but then there's been times where I've made a decision and it's the wrong decision.
Yeah.
And it's like, still, I need to be a mind reader and I'm trying to be a mind reader, but then I'm still getting the decision wrong. And it's like, oh, I'm just not going to bother anymore.
Yeah. And so that's a really common thing as well. So in this instance, your partner is likely that she's testing you, right? So she's testing how strong you are on that decision, and she's testing strength and safety. So a woman is always looking out for threats, right, from a nervous system level. And the premise of everything I do with my training and my work with men is based on the nervous system. Our nervous system is thousands of years old. It's a legacy system. And it pretty much works the same way as it did when we were hunters and gatherers, right? So men were hunters. They were always reserving their energy until it was a time to kill or go into battle, okay? That's how they survived, and they switched off from fear. Whereas a woman, they were gatherers, right? So they needed to use their intuition. They needed to look up after other women and children in the tribe in case the men didn't come back, and then they needed support. So that's how they survived. So your wife or your partner, your girlfriend, she's always thinking of everyone else. Even if she doesn't seem like it, she's always doing it, and she's always looking for safety or for danger, right? More so than a man would be. Okay. And, and these, like, if we sort of learn these common rules, even though they seem a little bit like, hunter-gatherer days, you'll find that everything fits within this framework. So what she wants most from you is strength and safety. And she's always going to test that safety, right? She's going to test if she pushes back on your decisions, right? If you're making the wrong decision. And I'm doing this movement because it feels like that. It's sort of like this energy interplay. She's seeing if you're confident enough. How confident are you with this decision? It's just dinner, but she's sort of testing you. How confident are you in protecting us and our children, right? And this is not a conscious thing. If you ask your partner, she might sort of, be a little bit confused. This is an unconscious mechanism.
Women are interesting creatures. So if you're making the wrong decision and she's testing you, so it's like she wants you to kind of stand your ground on that. Like, this is what we're having for dinner. Is that what she's wanting?
She wants to feel it's the right decision. So she's showing her uncertainty, right? So so a woman will always follow you. Your wife will always follow you. When I use the word wife, you can replace it with your girlfriend or your long-term partner. She's always following your lead, okay? Because the man is a leader in the relationship on a biological level. So it may not feel like she's always following you because she's questioning your decision-making, right? But if you don't feel certain in what you're doing, if you're not strongly passionate about, going to dinner, having Italian for dinner, and she feels like you're doing it to please her, or you don't really want to take her out for dinner, she's going to test that, right? So she wants to feel your energy, right? Her nervous system is just following you. She's like tethered to you basically like a Wi-Fi.
Okay. And in society now, there's so many, I guess, boss bitches out there that need no men, and I feel like there's actually a lack of masculinity out there. Divorce rates are so high. What do you feel like is the result of that? Is it like the lack of masculinity, so if women are stepping out and feeling like they have to be, I guess, the leader, which is then ruining relationships?
Yeah, 100%. There's an imbalance in masculine and feminine energy, right? So, this is really why I work with men. I don't do couples therapy because it's not necessary. When the man changes, when he steps into his masculine energy, right, and that is usually the issue in the dynamic, the woman changes and the dynamic of the relationship changes. But when a woman doesn't feel that strength and safety, maybe she's grown up without a father, or, she's never really had a strong masculine man in her life, and, she has to go out in the working world. She has male clients, a male boss. She has to try and make it in a male world. She's going to be in her masculine, right? So it's going to feel very unsafe for her to just let go and trust you as a partner if she's never had that strength and safety before. And really it is those, those boss bitches that, boss babes, whatever you want to call them, they're the ones that need a man who's more so in his masculine, right? The stronger a woman is, the more so she's out in that masculine world. If she's a working woman or just a very assertive woman, the more she's going to crave a masculine man. Because in order for a man to feel attraction to a woman and a woman to feel attraction to him, his testosterone levels have to be 10 times higher than hers, just on a biological level, right? So if he's afraid of her or if she's more certain than him, that energy is going to come off balance. And in relation to your other question around divorce, why is there so much divorce? Well, we're having a disruption in society, right? Things have changed. It's only, in Australia, it's like in the 70s where a woman could have her own name on her credit card, right? So women are working, they've got support. They don't need a man necessarily financially, not in all situations. So there's disruption, just like in other industries, in technology. You don't need to be with a TV network to have a really great show. Yeah. And this is what's happening in marriage. So a man's responsibility or his leadership is no longer just because he is the man and he goes to work, right? Because a woman can do that as well. So it's even more so important now for a man to fully be in his masculinity, right? To fully be in his strength, in his power, and not like from just either going to the gym or, being big or, making money or just sort of telling people what to do, not just from an aggressive space, but to also be emotionally strong as well. And that's really where a lot of the weakness is within relationships. And that's why a lot of marriages fail, because biologically men are avoiding the things that they fear. Okay, because in order for you to go out and hunt an animal, to go into battle, to go into war, you need to switch off from fear. When there's a fear within your home, like my wife could leave me, I could lose my family, I don't know what she wants, you'll switch off from that, you'll avoid it instead of dealing with the issue until there's some kind of awareness.
Is there a fine line between a man communicating his feelings and then him becoming like his partner's girlfriend or the partner feeling like she's the mum? Like there's a fine line, especially we speak into mental health and they say, it's not weak to speak. Every man should open up. But do you feel like with that comes men opening up too much, which is then ruining the energy balances that you say? Because I've seen somewhere that you said it has to be like a 60-40 balance.
Yes, I think you've done your homework.
Yes.
Yeah, you've done good research. So it's exactly right what you're saying. Yes, I think men need to have a safe space where they can release their emotions, right? Men have been basically emotionally repressed for years. The way that women have been physically, socially repressed, men have actually been emotionally repressed. And, the way that they would release these emotions previously was through aggression, from maybe hard work, but it's not so acceptable to go and, murder someone or bash someone or your partner. So now what's happening a lot, particularly, in Australia, the UK, New Zealand, these types of countries where, people don't tend to be super overtly emotional. It's not like sort of these hot-blooded countries. What happens with this emotional energy is that it goes internally, right? So it's repressed and suppressed. And so there's no functional outlet. And this is what I help men do. I help them get a functional outlet. I give them tools to manage their emotions and to transform them. So they don't need to express them dysfunctionally, right? Through rage, through complaining, through, either being the tyrant at home or being their wife's girlfriend who's always bitching and moaning. Because yes, if anything, that's going to kill your, life in the bedroom when you become her girlfriend. But to find a way to deal with it, either working through a coach, working with me, or I give them tools where they can do it themselves. And this is super important because the energy always has to go somewhere. And yes, society is creating a really confusing narrative now. Even traditional therapy for men, the structure doesn't work because continuously talking about your feelings without a end goal, okay, without a plan, it's actually dropping your testosterone because it's making you feel like you can't solve the problem. In order for a man to rebuild his testosterone, to boost it for your male hormones, right, for your masculinity, essentially, you need to have a problem that you can overcome and solve it and have the resources to do it. So if there's a problem and you're always talking about it, right, you're essentially going more so on your female side. Okay. And this is actually really healthy for women. That's how women naturally and biologically release stress, is they talk and talk and talk and talk, and they never really solve the problem, but they feel a lot better. And that in essence, solves the problem.
For me, the best way that I feel like that I relieve stress and my problems is actually getting out there and moving, going for a run, going to the gym, and then speaking to my mates whilst I'm doing that movement. I feel so much refreshed after.
Yeah.
Because especially if you're with one of your guy mates and you're speaking about a problem that's going on, as men, we're naturally trying to come up with solutions. We're not just bitching. It's like, okay, cool, this is happening. What can we do to fix it? And then when it comes to my partner, tell me if I'm right or wrong and if this is effective. But if something's going on in my life, it's like, okay, babe, I'm going through something right now. It's none of your, it's not your issue. It's something I'm going to go out and deal with myself. If it's something that I need to have a deeper conversation with you, like down the track, we'll do that. But right now I'm going to go for a run and go to the gym and I'm going to deal with it myself. Is that effective? Or?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic what you're doing. So what will happen with most men is they won't have that communication with their partner. They won't tell her that there's something wrong, and they'll just go into their cave or they'll avoid it, or they won't communicate and they'll sort of be moody, broody around the house. And this will go on for a long time, and then, your partner will start to think, it's me, because a woman is always trying to feel and understand and, take care of everyone else. And she's sort of burning a lot of energy trying to guess what's going on with you. So you, by creating that structure once again to tell her there's something going on, but you have a plan and you're sorting it and you'll get back to her when you're feeling better, that not only releases her from that sort of unnecessary burning of brain calories and worry and going into sort of these mental spirals with her girlfriends or on her own, but it also gives her relief that she doesn't have to solve.
Safety as well, wouldn't it?
Such huge safety. She doesn't have to be your mum and solve your problem because you're not moaning and complaining and stomping around, but she also feels involved, like she doesn't have to worry and she knows you're sorting it out. So it's a relief.
And when it comes to the other side of things, when your partner wants to express their feelings, women love to just go on rants and bitch about things. As a man, how do we navigate that area? Because we're not used to kind of doing that thing. So do we just sit there and go, yeah, and just listen?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And so, this is something I talk about a lot. It's one of the simplest tools I give for men to save their relationship, to improve it. It's just a tool for life. And it's simply asking her one question a night, or when she comes home with something, is creating that structure once again where you give her that presence, right? You're not on your phone, you're looking at her, you're sitting down, and she just vents. She talks because this is biologically how she releases stress. You ask her questions, or you make those reassuring sounds so she feels comfortable to talk about herself. She feels seen, heard, and then you're the hero at the end because you're the reason why she feels that relief after she's vented, right? So it's very little energy from you. The reason this is really painful for men a lot of the time is especially if she's talking about you, or, even if she isn't, if she's unhappy, a man will take that as his responsibility to make his partner happy. So in that moment, know that it's not you making her unhappy, but it's you making her happy by giving her that space to release her stress.
What I guess gives me the most pain when it comes to that is when females are bitching about a problem and there's an easy solution, yet you give the solution and then they get pissed off because you're trying to solve their problems.
Yeah. And at the same time, she doesn't want to be a little girl in a lot of ways, right? So she almost wants to be I guess in a way, because the man is a leader, right? When your relationship is balanced, you're almost her mentor in a way. But you're not this kind of like mentor that does everything for her. you kind of give her that support for her to solve her own problem. And a lot of the time, it's not about solving the problem. It's not about the problem. It's about releasing her emotions.
Yeah, okay.
And so when I work with men in the first session, this is what a man will understand, that understanding what the problem is actually 80% of the solution to solving it. And the mistake that men will make when it comes to problems in their relationship or relationship issues is jumping too quickly to the solution, right? When they haven't fully sat in the problem and understood what the problem is. And really, a lot of the overwhelming relationship issues for men is not being able to really understand the problem, to articulate it to someone else or even within themselves, let alone trying to solve it. And when a man can't solve a problem, then it's avoidance, right? And avoidance is really, the underlying killer of relationships.
Does this refer back to, I guess, you speak about tapping into that instant EQ?
Yeah.
Is this what you're kind of referring to? How do we tap into that?
Yeah, so you've done your homework. I like it. So this is about month 2 in my Mind Heart Method program. And essentially for men, as you say, men and women are completely different biologically, physically. Our brains are physically and biologically different. There's really nothing that's the same about us besides we're both human. That's about it. We think differently. We're conditioned differently. So it's very hard for a left brain, mostly left brain logical man, to understand a naturally more emotional woman. So this is a tool that I give men where you tap into, let's call it your gut instinct or your intuition.
Yep.
And this is something every man has used at one stage of his life, right? Your best decisions come out of gut instinct. Choosing your partner or your wife will not come from logic. It will come from gut instinct. So it's really tapping into that space, that heart space, or even to the gut instinct, to feel into how she's feeling, to understand things from her perspective. It's almost like stepping into her body and looking at the world from that space. And essentially, that's really what emotional intelligence is understanding how another person thinks and feels, what belief system they come from, how they see the world, and speaking to them from that space or relating to them from that space. And, for most men, men are logical creatures. The world is a man's world, essentially. But when they're able to open up their heart space or their right brain, they become very powerful.
Do you feel social media is playing a massive part in, I guess, failed relationships? For example, even if you have a simple fight now, a man can just go to Instagram and scroll and there's going to be photos of women that pop up and it's like that temptation of the greener patch of grass over there, that relationship that could be. Whereas back in, when I was younger or when you were younger, like there wasn't any of that sort of stuff around. Is that playing a massive part in it?
Look, I'm not sure. I mostly work with married men, right? So I think it's not talked about so often. I guess a category of men, or that most men would prefer to be in a long-term relationship. I think it's really over-glamorized, the whole playboy, or there's heaps of women out there.
Yeah.
Because most men understand that it's hard enough to have one woman, let alone two, let alone switch it over all the time. And, I think this is also a little bit of a responsibility of women, of how much they give men, whether it's on social media or on a date, because a man is only going to do what he has to do. Okay, that's what his nervous system is about, because he reserves his energy until it's time to hunt or fight. Okay, so if it's very easy for him to just find the next girl, maybe it will, after a while, his brain will become conditioned to every time he has a problem in his relationship, every time he's not validated, he'll go to social media and get that validation. It's like, when you're emotional eating, or, when you're going out partying, doing drugs, or you're a workaholic. When you're not getting that validation, in the heart space in your personal life, you'll go out at work, you'll go and eat, you'll go and do drugs, right, to fill that void. And social media is just another one of those ways. I don't think it's any different to what it was before, but it's definitely creating, I would say, not even just social media, but it's creating the whole online world in terms of pornography. It's creating a huge issue for men in terms of their sexuality, in terms of the longevity of their relationships, and in terms of their mental health and their overall satisfaction in love.
It's something that I've struggled with like a couple of years back, more so the going on social media and looking for something else when you're not feeling, I guess, desired or loved or respected.
Yeah.
You kind of go out and try and seek that elsewhere, or you just go on your laptop and you can easily access pornography.
Yeah.
And you get that quick dopamine hit, and it's something that I've struggled with and tried to fight off. And not many men speak about that because it is a deep trap.
Yeah. Needs to be spoken about because, look, they're manipulating men. I'll tell you, pornography is manipulating men. It's stealing your power. The only way when you release that power, the only way you can invest it is into a loving relationship. That's the only way that it's going to be an investment and it's going to give back to you. Otherwise, it's like having a bank account and you're wasting your money, you're throwing it out.
And then women feel like they're powerful when they're doing the OnlyFans and stuff like that because, you know, they get to control the men that are coming to them. That's hurting a lot of relationships too.
Look, I'm not sure. That's not my space. I don't know if women feel powerful when they're doing that. You know, maybe there's some sense of power because they have some financial domain. But essentially, it's not the women that are manipulating men. It is the industry. It's always the industry which exploits both the people that work in it and the people that use it. They're exploiting people's weaknesses, right, with the two key things: fear, greed, money, and sex. And then that industry and society have always exploited that, but now it's being done on a much larger scale.
What's your advice for a man or even myself that has struggled with, I guess, addiction to pornography? How do we stop easily? Like, how do we?
Yeah.
Because for me, it's just something that comes and it's like, I can't control it. And then I do it.
Yeah.
And then there's like an element of shame around it once you've done it. And it's like, then you bash yourself and then it just kind of repeats the cycle. There's a lot of men that go through that. What's your piece of advice for them? No,
I appreciate you sharing this because a lot of men are going through this. And, you know, some talk about it, some don't, but it's extremely common. And no man that I've ever worked with has ever said he feels like a king after he's, you know, just jerked off to the screen. No man ever feels like that. So you understand that it's taking something from you, right? Taking something from your energy field, from your soul, from your emotional body. And that's exactly what it's designed to do. My recommendation is to go cold turkey, right? It's not like a little bit is okay. It's similar to a bad drug habit, essentially. But with most drug habits or, you know, gambling habits or things like that, the cost becomes apparent after a while. There's a health cost, there's a financial cost. It starts to destroy your life. With pornography, people are only really starting to talk about it now, but it's extremely destructive. So if as a man, what you always want to do, especially if you're very left-brained, you need to get your mind on board. You need to understand why this is bad for you. You need to reframe this in your mind as being something, it's free, no one will know, it'll only take 2 minutes. There's no costs, right? And with social media, with online world, there's no cost to a lot of things. If you say, you know, if you troll someone, if you know, send something in their DMs, there's no cost. Okay, but there's always a cost. In terms of pornography, you need to reframe your mind around it. Start to look at this industry, right? This industry is not a charitable industry. They're not you know, it's the, let's just, I'll put the word sex trafficking here. It's a big issue in our society. Child pornography, right? They're all linked. So whatever can make you feel the most disgusted by it, the most off by it, so you can go cold turkey, right? What's going to scare you the most about it? Put that thought in your mind to help you just get rid of it.
So it's reframing it from
it.
It's not pleasure, but hey, like, this is child trafficking, like this is connected to child trafficking. And then in your mind, like, oh, this is the bad thing, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, well, whatever's costly. I think for most people, when you put that word there, it becomes a costly thing. But essentially, it's stealing your energy. It's stealing your life force, creativity that you could be using towards your business, towards your partner, towards your life. It is literally your life force energy that you're giving away to this very negative industry.
Another reason why I've lent into pornography and at times and gotten addicted to it is I wasn't, I guess, getting the love and the sexual connection with my partner. So I felt disheartened. So I had to go to pornography to try and get that, which was, the quick dopamine hit. And then, as I said, the circle continues of shame and guilt. But also at the same time, not feeling desired and love from my partner, because I guess as men, we feel connected through sex, yet women just feel like you're just trying to get your rocks off.
Yeah. Yeah. So, essentially, and this is something women have to really understand as well about men. This is one of the most important areas of life to a man. This is, how a man connects to his heart. That's how you feel, right? And for a lot of very masculine men, and this is sort of a genetic thing as well, a lot of masculine men and left brain men and men who have more of a dopamine chemical structure in their brain, right? So, this is also men with ADD, right? They need a stronger dopamine hit. It's very hard for them to feel this sense of peace and happiness and joy that, they're talking about all over social media. A lot of men can't feel that. Why? Because their genetics are not inclined to that. This is the first generation of men who don't have to work physically. They can go on a screen, they can drive in a car, first or second generation. If you immigrated, it's first generation. Most men generations back, particularly our producer here, they're warriors, right? They're in battle. That's what their physical genes are made for. They're not made for just feeling joy and happiness. How they feel that, feeling, and, I don't have to tell you, yourself, is through sex, is through intimacy, is through love with their partner. That is why relationships are so important. And really, sex is the gateway for a man to start to open up his heart. And, it's interesting that you bring it up, that connection of not feeling wanted and desired by your partner. Potentially it could be a link, but a lot of men who experience anxiety or are overly mentally stimulated, pornography is actually just a way to release anxiety.
Yes, I can relate to that actually, yeah.
Yeah, and see, this is why it's important to have the tools and understanding. It's not so much linked to your partner. It's not so much linked to sex. It's literally just a way to release your anxiety. So pornography is literally like a toilet, okay? It's like a toilet for anxiety. And this is why innately a lot of women who, I guess, love you or they're in their power, okay, that we're not talking about a woman on OnlyFans or does this for a living. And, I'm not saying anything negative about that, but we're talking about a woman who loves you, who wants connection from you, who isn't doing it for money. She will feel uncomfortable with you doing pornography on a deep level. She may not say it. She may not understand it. She'll feel uncomfortable because it's not about connection. It's literally like sex being a toilet, right? Or, going to your screen, and it's a toilet for anxiety. So what I recommend to my clients who have issues with anxiety or, it's linked to pornography is to have tools that help them to release their stress, to manage their anxiety. So they don't have to use pornography, or they don't have to use their partner sexually to release their stress, because women feel it, right? Sex and your relationship, it's a sacred space. And most people will never experience that in their life because, you might be doing it to release anxiety, to fill a void. But being with that one person and, going deeper and really working on that emotional side of things will take you to whole new levels. And you're not even going to need the pornography or, any other bits and pieces or gadgets or extra people or things like that.
I find it very interesting that you just brought up the anxiety thing, because then I'm thinking about my own life, and a lot of the times when I'm doing it, as I said, it may be because I felt rejected from my partner, but there's been a fair few times where I'm sitting on the lounge and I'm editing or doing something that's kind of stressful and a way for me to kind of procrastinate escape is by doing pornography.
Yes.
So that really flipped the switch. I was like, wow, this is kind of why I'm doing it as well.
Yeah. It's actually not a sexual thing. It has nothing to do with the bedroom. It just causes problems in the bedroom and the relationship. It's literally an escape. Okay, it's the same as drugs. It's the same as being a workaholic. It's an escape. So we need to understand, especially for men right now, today in our society, what are we escaping from? Okay, and what fills the space? Who is there when your mind is escaping? Okay, because oftentimes when you escape, this is the person that your partner's left with. And that really is causing a lot of the issues in the relationship. Not your true self, not who you are when you're present, but the body of yourself or the man when you're not present, when you've escaped, because things are getting too difficult, too tough. And this is like really coming back to the whole masculinity thing, right? What is masculinity? It's not repressing, it's not suppressing, it's really overcoming your fears. That's what I think for most men, and how a woman respects a man is a man who overcomes his fears, who faces the issue, who is brave. And this doesn't have to be on a physical level. In our society, it's very much on an emotional level.
Do you feel like as a man, once we work on ourselves and step into our true masculinity, that will help a lot of the issues, say, in the bedroom? Like, for example, I said, I'm a father, I've got a kid, kids are involved, intimacy drops down, and it's like, I want it, but she doesn't want it. How do we and she's like, I'm not interested in sex.
Yep.
How do we solve that? Because I feel like that's a lot of men in relationships and marriages, like parents, life is happening and it's like you forget to have sex essentially. You forget to have that intimacy with your partner.
Well, you don't forget to have sex. The man usually doesn't
forget
to have sex.
No, the man doesn't, but the woman...
the woman is just not giving it up as easily, right? And this is where, men and women are like two pieces of the puzzle. For a man, sex is the first thing to open up his heart, right? Through your lower region. That's the kind of like you're putting that in the charger to then charge your phone, which is the heart, right? For a woman, she's the charging point, okay? So how do I describe this? For her, it's like the cherry on the cake. She needs to be open to enjoy charging you up, right? And so where the work is for a man is to work on the emotional side of the relationship, to fill her up emotionally. So it's everything that you're doing outside of the bedroom, which is going to make things work in the bedroom, right? So for a lot of women, after a while, there's a buildup of resentment. When a woman is full of resentment, she doesn't have any space to have sex. When a woman has suppressed her emotions and she's not self-expressed, she's not sharing how she's feeling, she is more so on her masculine side, there's no room for that. A woman has to be relaxed and open emotionally so she can be the same physically. Otherwise, it's going to be an unpleasant experience for her, and that's why your wife is saying no. But if it continues to go on after a while, it's going to create issues, because that is sort of what you've signed up to in marriage, right? This is what marriage was always about, is a man being guaranteed with sex and a woman being guaranteed with safety. But now a little bit more is required, because if you say, oh, well, you don't want to have sex with me, I'm going to go find someone else, you get out on the street, the government can help her, she can get a job, she has more rights now. So what does this mean for men? It's actually an opportunity to develop yourself and to become stronger in an area, in a muscle that you haven't built, which society never talks about, which you've been suppressed in for a long time, and that's your emotional body, okay? So, we go back to the mental body, the physical body, and when we talk about mental health for men, we're always talking about the mental side, but it's not really about the mental body. Men are left brain. They're fine with thoughts. It's emotions that are sort of like, that what are emotions? So it's really building that emotional muscle. There's even research that when a baby boy and a baby girl are born, the right side of a boy's brain, because of high testosterone levels, it's not as developed, right? So a little baby boy is often more difficult than a baby girl. And this side often never really needs to develop because they never really need to use this in the outside world. But if they get hurt, they'll end up protecting it, okay? So this might make them very reserved or very aggressive, okay? Because they're protecting their emotions that they just don't know how to use.
For a man listening right now, they're probably thinking, wow, this is a lot of work I have to put in to, I guess, get lucky in the bedroom. What are some simple steps that men can implement to, I guess you mentioned creating that emotional safety space for their woman to be able to open up to them sexually?
Yeah, no, it's really not that difficult. Just understanding the concept of men and women and how they operate differently can take a little bit of time, right? But if this is something you're invested in or interested in, just like you've started your podcast, or if you're interested in cars or your profession, you're going to invest a little bit of time and maybe even a little bit of money into, making this an amazing and magical part of your life. And, so it doesn't cost you in the future with divorce. But essentially for a man, he can go back to use that simple tool, right, of asking his wife one question a night. He can use the tool of becoming present with himself and his emotions. This is through meditation or just general awareness, because we need to ask the question, why isn't a man being emotionally available at home with his partner? Because it feels vulnerable. It feels scary, right? And so he'd rather avoid it, okay? And then a woman isn't getting her emotional bank account filled. She's not getting what she needs from the man. So a man can, face his fear of, dealing with things that he can't overcome quickly, like his emotions. And it doesn't have to be even, sitting down and having long chats with her. It's simply releasing your own negative emotions, okay? Managing your stress, finding tools and strategies so you process those emotions from work stress or even from the past, from past relationships, from childhood, so that you can come home and you don't need to feel like you need to escape. Right? So you don't have to be anyone else. You don't have to, say a certain set of things. You just have to be you, the way that you were when you first met her, right? Without escaping.
Yeah. You mentioned there asking one question a night. What are some examples? Is it simple as like, how was your day? Or do you have a framework of questions that men should ask?
Yeah, so, it's always twofold, the benefit. So the benefit for men to ask this question for themselves, not just for their relationship, is it grounds them into the present moment. And it makes you sort of stop, pause, not be in your head in the past, future work, stop, pause, and notice your wife. Notice what she's wearing, notice what she's reading, what she's good at, how she's feeling. And just notice something and kind of try and be curious. You might ask her, what book are you reading? Have you always been interested in fashion or history? What were your dreams as a child? You can say, how's your day? But, like in Australia, it's kind of like, how you doing, right? Do we really ever answer that question?
No.
And it's the way you ask the question. Are you sitting down? Are you looking at her asking, how was your day? Tell me about it. Creating that safe container for her to share. Or are you turned around looking at your phone asking, how's your day, right? Because women are always sensing how much can they share. Women are not conditioned to speak about themselves, right? So they need that safe space in the workplace or wherever it is, even at home. So you need to kind of, as a man, you're the leader, so you need to mentor her a little bit for her to self-express. Because the more self-expressed she's going to be, the better it's going to be for you in the bedroom as well.
How do men be more attracted and connected to women? You speak about the 3 types of men women love and guaranteeing, women's love for you. What is that?
Yeah, so, there's a little bit of a entertainment or a little bit of an add-on there. Look, women are attracted to men in their power. Right? This is why, this sort of thing, a woman likes a man in uniform or things like that. It's not about the uniform. It's not about the car. It's not about a specific thing. And I think I used the wise man, the rebel and the warrior, right? So, men usually try and excel in these areas, either their mental body, their physical body, or, some kind of a external cause, whether it's a business or doing their life's work. And why do they do this? They do it because they want women to want them, right? Why do men do anything? Yes, they want the respect of other men. They want to feel good. But essentially, if it wasn't for women, like, would we building all these things? Would we have all these things? I'm sure a man would be happy to live with a bunch of other dudes and leave his laundry everywhere. Not every man, but some men. So essentially, a woman is attracted to you when you're fully charged, right? When you're passionate, when you have a mission, when you're in your power and you're in your strength. But as you get to know a woman, you can't always put all the bells and whistles. When you know your wife, each external thing that you do is not going to impress her anymore. She wants to see you in your wisdom, okay? She wants you to see you build your emotional muscle. She wants to follow you. She wants you to be the leader, that she wants to follow. So really that's what a woman is attracted to, a man that knows himself, right? And you have to do a little bit of work to know yourself so you're not distracted by the outside world, whether it's the news, whether it's the economy, whether it's pornography, your friends leading you in the wrong direction. But she wants to see you being your own man, essentially.
And does being mysterious and surprising play a big part in that? Because as men, we can be caught up in being habitual and just doing the same thing each and every day.
Yeah.
And it's so predictable for the woman. Like, okay, this is what he's going to be doing. We're going to be going to the same place for dinner. Like, we speak about spicing things up and adding that spark back to the relationship. Is it being mysterious?
Yeah, you can use that word mystery, but, especially after you've been in a long-term relationship, yes, men can get very comfortable. This is why men love long-term relationships, right? This is, men sort of talk amongst themselves. Maybe they like different women, different things, but really men like routine, they like consistency, they like long-term relationships. They might like some fast cars or things like that to boost dopamine, but in the relationship, they like consistency. With women, they're more emotional creatures. Women work on a cycle, on a 28-day cycle. It's a wave. So they do want excitement. They like tension, right? Even when a woman is close to you, they like that tension that you're going to bring. So you need to keep the tension within the relationship, okay? This isn't conflict, but it's keeping it exciting, keeping it mysterious, not being sort of a programmed habit, not escaping, right? When you're yourself, when you're present, when you're in life, you don't have to try and spice it up. You're present. You're naturally spontaneous. When you start to escape and you start worrying about the future, about the past, you're no longer present. You become a program. You're in routine, okay? You fear going outside the norm, trying a new restaurant, going overseas, right? And women don't like this because it's not fun. And it also doesn't feel really, she doesn't feel your strength and safety.
Yeah, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
To some degree?
Because a man that's, I guess, has that strength and that security is also striving to grow and to be a better version of himself, which means change, which means trying different things and going out there and going, okay, I'm going to try this new business. Or it's risky, but it's going to mean more growth and more security potentially. And women are attracted to that.
Yeah, well, women like fun, right?
Yeah.
Women want emotions. They want emotion. We all want emotions, but women need more emotion. They're emotional creatures. So you growing, learning, doing something new, unless it's highly, highly risky, is going to create that kind of life which has more of these peaks, right? Which has more emotional tension. And which is going to make you more yourself, right? And your partner that loves you is attracted to you, okay? She's not attracted, to the guy on TV, to your friend's husband or, unless there's something going on. But she wants the guy that she first met. So if you think back to yourself when you first met your partner, it's likely that you were spontaneous. It's likely that you did different things. It's likely that you didn't go to the same cafe or restaurant every day on every single date that you met her.
Yeah, because it was new.
It was new.
And they speak about always continuing to date your partner.
Yeah, yeah.
Always going on dates, always doing something new like it was in the beginning, yet it's so spoken of, once the honeymoon stage is up, it's boring.
I'll tell you why. So this honeymoon stage or this feeling that we have, that love, that connection, that high, right? That's always there. It's always inside. It doesn't disappear. it just gets layered up by a bunch of bullshit, right? By conditioning, programming, fears, the vulnerability of being rejected by a partner. And eventually what happens in an intimate relationship, the partner mirrors us and our partner mirrors our wounds. And that's essentially what relationships are about. We've kind of been lied to by Disney and pornography. It's not really what we've been told it's about. It's about bringing up our unhealed wounds. That's what our partner does. Okay, they're the mix of our core caregivers, the good and the bad. Our body wants to fulfill the trauma cycle. So that person we love, that we're connected to, it's no accident, right? It's absolutely no accident. Our subconscious mind knows what it's doing, the way it's beating our heart, the way it's running everything in our body. We are responsible for 5% of what's going on, our conscious mind. Our unconscious does the rest. So our partner eventually will start to trigger these wounds. Okay, most people are very afraid of that and it hurts. So they build up layering. So these relationships become more aloof. And a lot of couples, they don't break up because there's plates being thrown around. And yes, things can get violent, and we have a lot of domestic violence issues in Australia. So that happens too. But with a lot of couples, divorce happens is because they become like roommates because there's all this protection from this wounding. Okay, we don't want our partner to wound up. We don't want to bring up these painful emotions. But we need to bring up these emotions so that we can heal. And really in history until now, nobody knew how to do this, right? And this is essentially what we're doing when, we work on someone's marriage, when we work on ourselves, is we bring up our wounds, these repressed emotions, and we release them for our wound to heal and for us to become whole.
So it's not a bad thing when your partner triggers you all the time. It's just more so an opportunity for you to look inwards and ask yourself the question, why am I getting triggered?
Well, if your partner's never triggering you, then you're either in a transactional relationship, a safe relationship that has no feeling, right? It's like an arranged marriage or something like that. It's only normal that your partner will trigger you, but obviously you want to create that harmony so that the relationship is, pleasurable and harmonious.
Talk to me about big dick energy. Is it essential to healthy relationships? And what is it? How do you define big dick energy?
So I don't know if you're referring to one of my posts, but it's big D energy. It's big decision-making energy, okay? So I never said the other one. But, it's sort of the same play on words, right? So a woman always wants to feel that the man she's with is more powerful than her, then he's stronger than her, right? It's the natural way, okay? A man is physically more dominant. A woman is with a man, from our biology for protection, right? For strength and safety. To meet, we can't have those, we can't go upwards, we can't self-actualize, we can't have that deeper love and connection if we don't feel safe, right? If our, lower needs aren't met according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So a woman will always find that attractive. So if you've got fear within yourself as a man, right, a woman will always sense that, okay? You don't have big D energy. If you feel strong within yourself, if you feel confident, and this isn't arrogance, because arrogance is a way, and being obnoxious, it's a way to cover up for insecurities, right? A woman will feel when you're solid, okay? When you don't have fears within yourself, when you've made a decision for a reason, she'll start to feel confident in that. And that's what she's attracted to. How
did you end up being in this space? I'm curious, what leads you down the path? Myself. You don't even know, you just found yourself in this area?
No, it's kind of like it happened slowly and gradually, and then I sort of just ended up here. So I think I have a lot of the ingredients to be able to communicate with men and work with men in a language that they can understand. But I also very much understand women because I'm a woman and I've been in so many relationships and I've experienced so many heartbreaks. My background growing up, I'm from the former Soviet Union, kind of can't talk about that now politically, but it's a very, masculine, feminine world. It's quite a chauvinistic society that the woman has her place, the man has his place. So I would never be able to do this job over there, okay? Because that's not where they're at. It's more or less a third world country. But I have a really good understanding of how a woman needed to treat a man in order for him to feel good and to provide that safety and security. And I guess growing up, I've worked with a lot of men. My background is in sales. I worked in technology, football, a lot of male-dominated industries. And what would happen after a while, a lot of my male clients, bosses, colleagues would confide in me, right? They would talk about their stress. They would talk about their relationships. And at the same time, I was going through my own personal development journey. And this started off as basically a stress management training, as a sales training and a stress management training. After a while, I started to understand, as my clients came to me, that what most men were really stressed about, or what created stress, wasn't what was happening at work. It was what was happening in their personal life. So this became a relationship training. And then I further developed that by working in men's health, by developing the Mind-Heart method with doctors, with psychologists, and now it's based on the nervous system, and just working with hundreds and hundreds of men, right, to understand how as a man changes, the woman changes as well, and the relationship changes as well. And I've never met any of their wives, right? So this really just shows that the man is the leader in the relationship. And once he moves in a certain direction, either backwards and forwards, she will follow.
I've got some photos here, and I'll ask you a question about them. Mm-hmm. So there's two relationships here.
Yes. How did you find
What
this?
is the role that
I love it.
these men played in your life for you to understand men and relationships?
Yeah. You're good at what you do. You did your research. This is a good one. So one on the left, these are my grandparents. This is my grandfather who passed almost 2 years ago now. And this is my father. This is them back in Ukraine, the former Soviet Union. And I love these photos because they look happy here, that you can feel a vibe between my parents. My mum is looking at my dad as if he's the leader. My grandfather is providing that strength and safety for my grandmother. And I love these photos because you can see that connection. Unfortunately, that's not how I would describe their relationships, right? And there was a lot of turmoil. I mean, they lived in the former Soviet Union. They immigrated to a whole different world as political refugees. So there was a lot of stress in their life, a lot of starting anew in a completely different place. So stress is the killer of relationships, essentially. And, I wish that, my grandfather or my father maybe had some of these skills to manage their stress, whether it was suppressing it or expressing it, so that, my mother and my grandmother could have been a little bit happier in their relationship. But, I do love both of them, and, they both provided enough strength and safety that was needed for that time. But maybe if we fast forwarded these relationships to, where we are in 2023, almost 24, these relationships wouldn't have been adequate, right? So, yeah, thanks for showing me these photos. It's nice to see them.
Do you feel like those relationships are a driving factor for you to help men now to improve relationships?
It's a good question. I feel that potentially both my grandfather and my father didn't have the understanding, education, in the Soviet Union. You didn't know anything, let alone how to understand emotional intelligence. But yes, maybe they didn't really step into their leadership in that way, right? So my grandfather worked a lot and he wasn't present for my dad. And my dad, enjoyed life a lot. He partied a lot. So, maybe, and obviously he was very young when he had me, and in the Soviet Union, men love to drink. Vodka is a big thing. So there wasn't that emotional presence for me. And it's very important for a daughter, for a son, to have the presence of their father. And this is actually one of my favorite parts about my work, obviously saving relationships, but the relationship that changes between a father and his kids. It absolutely changes the trajectory of their life when a father is present and understands their child.
For me, I never had a strong relationship with my father. And I think as a result of that, it allowed me to actually build a strong relationship with my daughter because I didn't have that it was a driving factor for me to create that with my daughter. And I used to have a lot of resentment and stuff towards my father. But once I understood, hey, you're just doing the best with the tools that you have.
Yeah.
And by you, I guess, being that way allowed me to understand what I truly want out of being a father myself. So I'm super grateful for that. And I'm sure you're grateful for your parents because it's allowed you to understand how a relationship should actually be, which is why you're doing the work that you're doing now.
Yeah. Look, I think if I've come from, perfect home and perfect family and perfect society, like if I was born now in 2023, and I probably wouldn't be doing this, right? We have a journey and we have certain wounds because it's part of our life purpose. It's part of our destiny, right? We all do have some sort of purpose. And, we can't be perfect people. We can't be perfect parents. So each generation tries to do better. They're just doing that extra bit better. It may not look like it, but yeah, most people are doing the best they can with the tools they have. So I think it's really commendable that you're trying to do that for your daughter as well.
Do you have one last message for the men out there listening to this?
My message for men, if you've listened to this to the end, I want to acknowledge you. I think it's absolutely the next stage in human evolution and a man's evolution to connect to his heart, right? We're at the sort of the heart level, the 4D going into the 5D. You may not resonate with that, but really opening up this space is our next step in evolution. If you look at our world now, it's full of wars, it's full of chaos, full of disaster. Not to say it was any better before, but it's not working. War upon war, conflict, it's not working. So we need to do something else. We need to go from a space of love instead of from fear, from battle. And the work that you do on yourself, on your heart space, overcoming your fears and not reacting from them, the work that you do on yourself within your relationship has a huge impact on not only your children, your community, but the world. You don't realize what it does. So I want to commend you for this. And yeah, don't avoid your fears. Go deeper. Use it to transform your lead basically into gold.
For anyone interested in knowing more about the work that you do and even maybe working with you, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, so you can connect with me on Instagram, on LinkedIn. You can just shoot me a DM. I answer all of them. We can have a bit of a chat or head to my websites, mindheartmethod.com, and yeah, check it out, book in an intro session and we can chat.
We have a closing tradition on the podcast where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest without knowing who it is. So the question for you today is, if the world was going to end tomorrow, what would be your last meal? Maybe a meal from, when you were growing up and it's like bringing back those memories and those emotions.
Oh, well, I don't know if I want to end my life bloated. I just came back from Melbourne, spending time with my family, eating, Russian, Ukrainian food. I don't think I'd be thinking about food at that point. That would be last thing on my mind. But if it was, it would be chocolates, cream, strawberries, and caramel. Some concoction of that.
You're a chocolate girl?
Yeah, and then maybe an espresso martini as well.
Awesome. Sasha, thank you so much for your time. It's been an amazing chat.
Thank you so much.